Hello, I'm Hope, Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. The world inside the Bold and the Beautiful is about to erupt with heartbreak, betrayal, and painful consequences as Friday, July 3rd, delivers an emotionally devastating chapter that leaves relationships hanging by a thread. Long-buried tensions finally rise to the surface, loyalties are questioned, and for some, the damage may already be beyond repair. What begins as simmering disappointment quickly transforms into a storm of shattered trust, forcing multiple people to confront the painful reality that some actions can't simply be forgiven. And as emotions spiral out of control, several lives are about to change in ways no one saw coming. At the beach house, the atmosphere grows unbearably tense as Electra Forrester reaches her breaking point with Will Spencer. The hurt written across her face says everything before a single word is even spoken. And despite Will's desperate attempts to explain himself, the emotional damage has already been done. He tries to defend his actions, explaining that he found himself trapped in an impossible situation, burdened by family obligations that forced him to remain silent about what his relatives had been secretly planning. In his mind, he had little choice but to protect those closest to him, even though keeping quiet meant deceiving someone he deeply cared about. But standing before him now, Electra isn't interested in hearing justifications. The betrayal cuts too deeply, and no explanation Will offers can erase the painful reality of what happened. The weight of recent events has already turned Electra's world upside down, and her frustration quickly spills over as she begins venting about everything she has lost in the fallout. Ridge Forrester's decision to place her jewelry line on hold has left her furious and devastated, especially knowing that the entire situation spiraled out of control because of the disastrous events surrounding Hope's latest launch, and the now infamous Hope for the Future diamond controversy. The professional setback feels deeply personal, another casualty in a chain reaction of betrayal and disappointment that has impacted nearly everyone connected to the Forrester family. Rationally, Electra knows none of this is technically Will's fault. After all, the Forresters were the ones who fired him, forcing him into a position where he had no option but to seek work elsewhere. But logic means very little when emotions are running this high. And right now, all Electra can focus on is the fact that Will kept devastating secrets from her. The betrayal sits too heavily in her heart, and the trust between them suddenly feels fragile, maybe even broken beyond repair. As Will watches helplessly, Electra reaches a painful conclusion that signals just how serious the damage truly is. She can no longer pretend everything is fine, and continuing to live under the same roof has become emotionally impossible. With heartbreak and anger colliding inside her, she makes the difficult announcement that she may be moving out of the beach house altogether. Whether this decision marks the official end of their relationship remains uncertain, but one thing becomes painfully clear in that moment. She needs distance. Will desperately tries to stop her, hoping somehow he can make her understand why he did what he did, but the connection they once shared is hanging by its thinnest thread, and despite his efforts, reconciliation is nowhere in sight. Meanwhile, across town, another complicated relationship faces its own uncertain crossroads, as Remy Price makes an unexpected move. Reaching out to Deke Sharp, Remy offers warm congratulations regarding Deke's successful launch at Logan, extending what appears to be a genuine gesture of support and admiration. Deke appreciates hearing the kind words, and for a brief moment, there's a sense that old feelings may still linger beneath the surface. But the emotional wounds from their complicated history remain far too fresh, and despite Remy's obvious hope that this interaction could reopen the door between them, Deke makes his feelings painfully clear. Right now, he simply isn't willing to revisit what they once had. Though Remy tries to stay hopeful, quietly wishing he could somehow change Deke's mind, the rejection becomes impossible to ignore. Deke stands firm in his decision, making it clear that while perhaps someday circumstances could be different, that day certainly isn't today. The possibility of a future reconciliation remains distant, existing only as a fragile maybe somewhere far ahead. For now, the answer remains no. As Remy processes the disappointment, the painful realization settles in that some broken relationships can't be repaired simply through good intentions. Some wounds need far more time than people are willing to give. But perhaps the most emotionally devastating confrontation of all unfolds as Brooke Logan Forrester finally reaches her absolute limit with her daughter, Hope Logan Spencer. For weeks, disappointment and betrayal have slowly been building inside Brooke, but now the pressure has become unbearable. Hope arrives hoping for understanding, desperate for forgiveness, believing perhaps her mother might eventually soften once emotions settle. But this time, Brooke's patience has completely run out. The hurt inside her has hardened into something far more dangerous: emotional exhaustion. And when Hope begins pleading for forgiveness, hoping to mend the fracture growing between them, Brooke delivers a response colder and more painful than her daughter ever imagined. With heartbreaking finality, Brooke makes it crystal clear that forgiveness will not come easily this time. The bond between mother and daughter, once seemingly unbreakable, has been damaged in ways that can't simply be repaired with apologies. Every recent betrayal, every act of disloyalty, every painful decision Hope has made has slowly chipped away at Brooke's trust until almost nothing remains. The woman who has always fought fiercely for her family now finds herself standing on the edge of an emotional breaking point she never thought she would reach. And as tears, anger, and disappointment collide in one devastating confrontation, Brooke draws a line that changes everything. In a moment filled with raw emotion, Brooke may issue the ultimatum no one ever believed would come. Her words strike with crushing force, as she makes it clear she wants both Hope and Liam Spencer out of her house immediately. For Hope, the shock is overwhelming. Being rejected by her own mother carries a pain unlike anything else, and hearing Brooke demand that she leave feels less like punishment and more like complete emotional abandonment. Liam had already tried preparing for the possibility, reassuring Hope earlier that they could stay safely at the Spencer mansion if things deteriorated with Brooke. But knowing there is somewhere else to go does nothing to soften the devastation of being thrown out of the home that once symbolized family, comfort, and belonging. What makes the moment even more heartbreaking is the terrifying possibility that Brooke's decision goes far beyond simply asking Hope to leave. Beneath the anger lingers something far darker: the suggestion that Brooke may be emotionally severing ties with her daughter entirely. The thought of being disowned by the woman who has stood beside her through so many past storms leaves Hope emotionally shattered, forced to confront consequences she never imagined could become this severe. The silence that follows Brooke's brutal decision feels suffocating, heavy with years of love now overshadowed by betrayal and disappointment. It is a moment neither mother nor daughter will ever forget. As Friday's explosive episode unfolds, the emotional fallout promises devastating consequences for everyone involved. Electra and Will's future grows uncertain as trust begins collapsing around them. Remy faces painful rejection after hoping love might find a second chance. And Hope finds herself facing perhaps the cruelest blow of all, watching her own mother draw a line so severe it threatens to permanently destroy the bond they once shared. The heartbreak spreading across each storyline serves as a brutal reminder that actions have consequences. Secrets always surface eventually, and sometimes forgiveness comes far harder than anyone expects. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, everything is changing, and for some, The damage may already be irreversible. As the weight of Brooke's devastating ultimatum settles over the room, Hope stands frozen in stunned silence, struggling to fully process what has just happened. The words coming from her mother feel almost unreal, as though the foundation beneath her entire world has suddenly collapsed without warning. For so long, no matter how complicated their disagreements became, Hope had always believed there was one unshakable truth she could count on. Brooke would never truly turn her back on her. But now, staring into her mother's eyes, she sees something that terrifies her more than anger itself. She sees disappointment so deep, so profound, that it has transformed into emotional distance unlike anything she has experienced before. And in that painful realization, Hope begins to understand that this time, things may have gone far too far. The betrayal Brooke feels has been building for longer than anyone realized, hidden beneath layers of maternal love and endless second chances that she had continued offering again and again. But somewhere along the way, each act of disloyalty began leaving scars that never fully healed. Every decision Hope made that placed ambition, secrecy, or personal desires above family slowly chipped away at Brooke's ability to keep defending her daughter's actions. Now standing at this emotional crossroads, Brooke herself looks shaken by the severity of what she has said. But there is no hesitation in her voice anymore. The heartbreak on her face reveals that this decision is hurting her deeply too. Yet she has reached a place where protecting her own peace has become more important than continuing to excuse behavior she can no longer accept. And for the first time, mother and daughter find themselves standing on opposite sides of a divide that feels terrifyingly permanent. Nearby, Liam Spencer watches the entire confrontation unfold with a heavy sense of dread settling over him. He had anticipated tension between Brooke and Hope after everything that recently happened, but even he never expected emotions to spiral to this extreme. Deep down, he understands Brooke's frustration, understands the anger that has been quietly growing beneath the surface for weeks. But watching Hope absorb this devastating rejection leaves him torn between sympathy and helplessness. Earlier, he had tried preparing for exactly this possibility, offering reassurance that the Spencer mansion remained an option if Brooke pushed them away. At the time, it felt like a precaution, a backup plan they probably wouldn't need. But now reality has arrived with brutal force, and suddenly his quiet offer has become the only lifeline left for Hope to cling to. Yet even with somewhere else to go, the emotional wound cuts far deeper than simply losing a place to stay. This house represents years of memories, family bonds, moments of love, healing, and connection that once defined Hope's relationship with Brooke. Being forced to leave is more than relocation. It feels symbolic, as if every mistake she has made has finally caught up with her all at once. The walls around her no longer feel familiar or comforting. Instead, they now stand as painful reminders of everything she may have permanently destroyed. And as Hope begins silently realizing the true consequences of her actions, a crushing loneliness slowly starts surrounding her. Sometimes the hardest punishment isn't losing comfort. It's realizing you've disappointed the people whose love you thought would never disappear. Meanwhile, back at the beach house, Will Spencer refuses to give up on Electra, despite the emotional distance growing wider with every passing second. Watching her prepare to walk away forces a painful truth into focus for him. His silence may have cost him the person he cares about most. He never intended to hurt her. In his mind, he had been trapped by impossible circumstances, cornered by obligations to family loyalty, while trying desperately not to create even greater chaos. But intentions matter very little once trust has been broken. Electra isn't just angry about hidden secrets. She feels blindsided, humiliated, and deeply wounded, Knowing the man she trusted allowed her to remain in the dark, while events unfolded around her that directly impacted her life and career. The suspension of her jewelry line continues weighing heavily on Electra's mind, turning personal betrayal into professional devastation as well. Everything she had worked towards suddenly feels uncertain because of decisions made by people around her, leaving her powerless to stop the fallout. Ridge Forrester's decision to halt the line may have been business, but to Electra, it feels like watching months of hard work disappear overnight. And when pain from professional disappointment collides with heartbreak from personal betrayal, emotions intensify beyond reason. Will keeps trying to explain himself, hoping somehow he can reach the part of Electra that still cares about him enough to listen. But every word he offers only seems to remind her how completely trust has shattered between them. Some damage isn't immediate destruction. Sometimes relationships break slowly, in quiet, painful moments exactly like this one. Across another corner of Los Angeles, Remy Price quietly wrestles with heartbreak of his own after hearing Deke Sharp firmly reject the possibility of rekindling their relationship. What had started as a sincere, congratulatory message now leaves him facing a painful reminder that certain doors remain closed, no matter how badly someone wants another chance. Deke's success at Logan represents everything Remy genuinely admires about him: his ambition, resilience, and ability to move forward despite past complications. For a moment, Remy had allowed himself to imagine that supporting Deke during this milestone might soften old wounds enough to reopen communication between them. But reality proves far colder than hope. Deke appreciates the gesture, yes, but appreciation is not forgiveness, and certainly not reconciliation. Still, beneath Deke's firm rejection lies the faint suggestion that maybe time could eventually change things. Perhaps someday circumstances will be different. Perhaps wounds will heal enough for old feelings to resurface. But that future remains distant, uncertain, and painfully undefined. For now, Remy is left alone with disappointment, forced to accept that wanting a second chance does not guarantee receiving one. Sometimes people move forward while leaving others behind, and all anyone can do is watch helplessly as opportunities slip through their fingers. The silence after rejection often speaks louder than words themselves, and tonight, Remy finds himself trapped inside exactly that silence. As these separate lives continue unraveling, one powerful truth begins connecting every storyline unfolding across the bold and the beautiful. Trust has become the fragile thread binding every relationship together, and once broken, repairing it may prove far harder than anyone expected. Brooke's trust and hope has fractured to its breaking point. Electra's faith and will now hangs dangerously close to collapse. Remy's hope for rebuilding something meaningful with Deke has been painfully denied. Everywhere emotions are intensifying, consequences are growing heavier, and the choices people once believed they could control are now beginning to control them instead. And as Friday's emotional storm reaches its devastating climax, the future remains clouded by uncertainty. Will love survive betrayal? Can family bonds recover after words this painful have been spoken? Will second chances ever come for those desperately seeking redemption? For Hope, Electra, Will, Remy, Deke, and Brooke, nothing feels stable anymore. The consequences are here now, unavoidable and deeply personal. In true The Bold and the Beautiful fashion, lives are shifting, loyalties are crumbling, and the emotional scars left behind may continue changing everything long after the confrontation itself has ended. And this chapter may only be the beginning of an even bigger storm still waiting on the horizon.